All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're uncovering how everyday people are building massive financial independence, and they're doing it without ever launching a trendy tech startup. We are constantly bombarded with stories of Silicon Valley unicorns and overnight app sensations. It's everywhere. But if we actually look at the data and the real-world strategies for building lasting wealth, the reality is far less flashy, and frankly, it's just way more accessible. So we're going to break down the highly lucrative, utterly unsexy world of boring businesses.
So who exactly are these quiet millionaires? Well, look around you. They're out there. Usually they're 45 to 50 years old, absolutely no longer dependent on a weekly paycheck. And the crazy part is, nobody around them even knows it. They're earning significantly more than employees holding expensive master's degrees. And here is the real kicker. They are working far fewer hours than those corporate employees do. They don't have venture capital backing. They don't have thousands of employees. So what's their secret? The secret is they intentionally embraced the boring. Seriously, they didn't invent a revolutionary piece of software or open a flashy, trendy restaurant where, let's face it, 9 out of 10 fail in the first year anyway. Instead, they went out and picked the most unglamorous, simple businesses they could possibly find. And that's entirely by design. The sheer discomfort of the work, getting up early, getting your hands dirty, doing those repetitive tasks day in and day out, is exactly the barrier to entry that keeps their competition completely away.
Section 1. Unsexy but profitable businesses. Now, we've taken this massive, honestly overwhelming list of potential opportunities and distilled it right down to the most strategic pathways for you. Grouping these everyday services like this reveals clear, accessible models for starting a business based entirely on your current resources and goals. For instance, if you don't have much cash, you look at the low capital options. Think junk removal or locksmith services, where your main investment is just learning a trade and buying some basic tools. Now, if your goal is stability, the recurring column highlights things like pool maintenance and HVAC contracts, giving you that sweet, predictable monthly income. And if you eventually want to step away from the daily grind, the passive and scalable options, like a self-service car wash or commercial linen rental, offer paths where the equipment or the commercial contracts literally do the heavy lifting for you.
To really wrap our heads around the sheer scale of the demand for these services, get this: 4 million. That represents the projected number of home transactions in 2025 alone, according to National Association of Realtors data. That's practically a whole city moving. And every single one of those 4 million transactions desperately needs an unglamorous job done before closing: a pre-purchase home inspection. Someone has to check the roof, the plumbing, the foundation. The demand is massive, it's built in, and it's practically automated by the housing market itself.
Moving on to Section 2, why boring beats exciting. Here's the beautiful thing. None of these businesses depend on a booming economy. Think about it. Whether we're in a massive economic boom or a deep, painful recession, a pool still needs weekly chemicals, right? Otherwise, you're dealing with green water and bacteria. HVAC systems are still going to break down in the dead of winter. Millions of septic tanks outside urban areas still need pumping every 3 to 5 years. And trust me, you do not ignore that unless you want immediate, terrible odors in a flooded yard. Damaged trees, they require removal for insurance claims, completely regardless of what the stock market is doing today. Because the consequences of ignoring these issues are immediate and painful, these businesses are deeply structurally resilient.
So, this crucial point is summarized perfectly by financial writer Morgan Housel in his book Same as Ever. He really hit the nail on the head here. He says boring, steady, predictable money almost always beats exciting money, because exciting money depends on your luck holding out, and boring money only depends on you continuing to show up and work. It beautifully illustrates the mindset you need. You kind of have to swallow your pride to do the unglamorous work. Exciting money relies heavily on luck and timing, but boring money, it solely depends on your consistency. Your willingness to get up, knock on doors, and just show up to do the work when nobody else wants to.
All right, Section 3, 3 mistakes to avoid. Now, before you run out and start buying vacuum trucks or commercial washing machines, we need to talk about the traps. These are the common errors that cause people to fail when they finally muster up the courage to start. So let's walk through these 3 fatal mistakes. Mistake number 1 is choosing a business solely based on profit margin rather than actual local demand. Listen, it doesn't matter how profitable pool maintenance is if you live in a town where literally nobody owns a pool. You have to do the boring research first. Mistake number 2 is competing on price. If you race to the bottom just to land clients fast, they're going to leave you the second they find someone cheaper. You have to compete on reliability. Showing up on time is what lets you charge more over time. And finally, mistake number 3, which is probably the biggest trap of all, failing to turn one-off clients into recurring contracts. Securing a base that pays you month after month without you even having to ask, that is the true secret to freedom from the daily grind. And hey,
A lack of huge capital is simply not an excuse anymore. If you've got less than $3,000 to invest, you can easily start mobile car detailing, pool maintenance, or a locksmith business. These are highly profitable routes that rely purely on your time and your willingness to learn a trade. Now, if you do have $10,000 to $30,000, you can look at things like dumpster rentals, small-scale self-service car washes, or snow removal equipment. These require a bit more upfront cash for sure, but they generate income with way fewer direct hours of your own labor once they're up and running.
Which brings us to Section 4, Daniel versus Alex.
This story brilliantly illustrates the whole shebang, the ultimate lesson of this explainer. So, meet Daniel. Daniel suffered from massive analysis paralysis. He desperately wanted a startup that sounded really impressive at dinner parties. You know the type. He read about real estate, bought crypto courses, studied dropshipping, but he never actually finished any of it. 5 years later, he's still stuck at his desk with that exact same $58,000 a year office salary, just waiting for the perfect moment. Then we have Alex. Alex swallowed his pride. He started with the simplest thing he could find, cleaning pools on weekends while keeping his day job. He just went out and knocked on doors in his own neighborhood. He reinvested every single dollar back into local ads and better tools, and eventually he quit that office job entirely.
And here is the emotional and financial payoff of Alex's choice. By consistently showing up and doing the unglamorous work, Alex built a reoccurring client base of 40 pools. He hired 2 employees to manage 3 routes. Today, he makes $140,000 a year. That's right, he more than doubled his old salary. And because he built a recurring, reliable system, he actually works fewer hours than Daniel does, sitting in that office dreaming about his perfect tech startup.
So, that brings us to the absolute most important question of this entire explainer. What boring business are you going to start? Are you going to be a Daniel waiting around for a flashy idea that just never comes, or an Alex willing to embrace a little discomfort to build real, quiet wealth? I want you to leave a comment below telling us which unsexy path you would choose to start on your weekends to build your own financial independence. Get out there, embrace the boring, and let's get after it.